Hello, I'm Mrs. Stevens, and I wanted to talk to you guys today about some terms that you're going to have to know for English 9. And this is for the final. And we are going to apply these to books that we actually have read together and also short stories and poems. But I thought that I would start with this story, Strega Nona. You may have read it when you were little, just to show you that even this could be applied, like all of these questions on this LT sheet can be applied to any story. They can be applied to any movie. They could be applied to a poem because usually those are narrative. So right here, this story, basically, I'll just give you a rundown of the story. This main character named Strega Nona, she's kind of, well, the book calls her an old grandma lady who was also a witch. And she's not an evil witch at all. She's a healer. So she like heals the town, and she happens to have this little, actually, he's very tall. He's not little. He's an assistant named Big Anthony, and you can see him here helping her. He like sweeps around and he does some chores. He takes out the trash and everything. And so I'm going to be talking about these characters. Basically, Strega Nona goes away to help someone in the next town, and she tells Big Anthony, whatever you do, don't touch anything. So this is kind of like the archetypal story of, Adam and Eve. Adam and Eve, whatever you do, don't eat from the forbidden tree, right? Of course they're gonna, and we could even see this story, the same sort of story written today. Like, whatever you do, don't touch the red button, and of course I could leave the room. How long would it be until one of you guys touched the red button? That's just how it is. So this story is classic like that. And of course, Big Anthony, he, does what she says don't do. She says don't touch the magic pasta pot. Of course, he's making pasta for everyone in town. What an idiot. But he doesn't realize that Strega Nona knows this special recipe, and she knows how to make the magic pasta pot stop. But he can't seem to make it stop. And of course, she's out of town. And what ends up happening is the entire town is inundated with pasta noodles. This is a disaster. This is such a cute story. And oh no, everybody's so upset. But guess what? Strega Nona knows what to do. She returns and she blows the magic pasta pot 3 kisses. And that is the magic, I guess, recipe to stop the magic pasta pot. And then the townspeople, they get so angry at Big Anthony. They say, string him up. We want to punish Big Anthony. But he just ends up, it's like really tense for a moment here, but he ends up having to eat all the pasta in town, and he sort of learns his lesson at the end. There he is. And this is him at the end of the story. So I'm just going to use this story to go through these terms, and then you can read some stories and watch some episodes. I have an episode for you guys to watch, and that should help you apply these terms to actual stories that we're going to read together. So the first thing you need to know is setting and time and foil, okay, for exposition. Okay, exposition is the setting and the time and the foil. So what is the setting here? This is set in Italy, in Calabria, a long time ago. The images look medieval to me. Okay, so you're going to come in contact with a lot of Italian words and character foil. Okay, that would be where 2 characters are opposite. So if you look here at character foil number 6, character foils are similar characters with one difference. Like, say Batman and Alfred. Batman, he's different from Alfred. Both of them want, the good guys to win. They want to get these evil characters off the streets of Gotham. Yes, they do. But there's a difference, and Alfred is a little older than Batman, right? He can't just go out every night and wear the bat suit and fight crime. He has to stay at Wayne Manor. So, I don't know. Maybe the mayor of town could be a foil to Strega Nona because maybe he's like, he has powers that are greater than some of the characters in the story, like she does, and he wants to heal the town, right? Well, the difference is the mayor doesn't have magic powers like Strega Nona does. Now, foil can also be two opposite characters. And so I'll give you an example of that. Strega Nona and Big Anthony, right? And just physically, look at them. Uh, Big Anthony is really tall and skinny and goofy, and he doesn't follow directions, whereas Strega Nona, she's small, wise, she's a healer. She is older and larger, as you can see. Pasta is not good for the waistline, but it's good for the soul, isn't it? Yep. So that's a character foil, and they're really fun. Okay, so another thing we need to know would be the rising action. Okay, this is where characters face secondary conflicts. Like a secondary conflict here in this story was like maybe man versus self, and that's when Big Anthony, he does what he's not supposed to do and feeds the whole town pasta, and he realizes that the pasta pot hasn't stopped making pasta, and he realizes he's in big trouble and he shouldn't have been an imposter and tried to do magic like Strega Nona. So that would be our secondary conflict, that the whole town is inundated with pasta and they need help. Number 3, climax. This is the most exciting part. Well, a lot of people would say, oh, Miss Stevens, I think, when the whole town is filled with pasta is the most exciting part. And I might agree with you, but I think there's an even a more exciting moment, and that is when the whole town says we should string them up. At one point they say, let's see, grazie, Strega Nona, thank you, the people cried. But then they turned on poor Big Anthony. String them up, the men in the town shouted. Okay, so it's tense there. It's just very tense. So maybe these moments here where the pasta's gotten out of control, and also the moment where they're like, we're going to take Big Anthony down. Okay, most exciting part. Now, number 4, the falling action. This is when the protagonist hangs on by a thread. So in this moment too, it's really tense. So this final moment of suspense might be, Big Anthony's sentence. They're gonna hang him. Well, I don't know exactly what they're going to do to him. Hopefully nothing like that. I don't know how to even explain this to children, but he's in big trouble. He's ashamed. The whole town is after him. So I'd say, maybe just this terrible sentence facing him, number 4. Now, what if you weren't sure? Let me use an example of a movie you may have seen. You may have seen the movie Titanic. Oh my gosh, it's one of my favorites. Leonardo DiCaprio. Yes, so I would say exposition. Let me go back. Let me say exposition. This is set in 1912, right? This is, a boat that's headed to America. It's the maiden voyage. It's very exciting, right? We meet a character named Rose. We meet a character named Jack. We know that they're character foils. They're opposites. We meet a character named Rose. We meet a character named Cal. And we can see that they're very similar, but they have one difference. The rising action in this story. Well, the boat hits an iceberg. That's really bad luck. And no one's nearby at all in the middle of the night to come help them. And no one can hurry because the waters are icy. So it's tense, okay? I might say that the climax is, maybe also I'd say number 2, I'd say hitting the iceberg is also part of the rising action, because now they're in trouble. They're facing this man versus nature conflict. Climax, I'd say for that moment when the ship splits in 2. I don't know if you guys have seen that. It's very exciting. The ship, it's tragic, and it's too soon to even watch a movie about that. But the ship pulls, it snaps in half, right? And then it pulls the other part of the ship down, and they have to hold their breath, right? A very exciting part. And the ship pulls them down even further, so they have to kick it away and swim and find something to lay against until people can come back and rescue them. Okay, now the falling action. we discussed this as being like Big Anthony's sentence. In this movie, it may be the moment where we don't really know what's going to happen to Jack and Rose. Like, Jack makes Rose promise something. I'm not going to spoil the movie for you if you haven't seen it, but he makes her promise something. And we also, there's this diamond as well. Like, what has happened to the diamond? We don't know. So number 4, I just want you to think it's a moment of final suspense. It's a moment where it's like a final moment of suspense, but it's also the protagonist is hanging on by a thread. Okay. So we don't really know what's going to happen to Rose in this moment. We don't really know what's happened to the diamond. It's just very tense. The resolution is a release of tension. So in this book right here, we know that, Big Anthony is not going to get strung up. He actually just gets a fork and he has to eat all of the pasta in the town. And that's his little punishment. Okay. That's the release of tension, the resolution. Some people call it the denouement. Here it is. She's happy sleeping in her bed, and Big Anthony has learned his lesson. So, that, and then the final, I guess, if I was going to go back and I was going to say that Titanic, my favorite movie, I'd say that the resolution is, when the old lady's in her bed. I don't want to spoil this movie for you if you haven't seen it, but it's a great movie. Okay, I want to go on. I already talked to you guys about character foil, but we will discuss this at length this semester. For number 7, types of conflicts, we've got man versus man and man versus self. And no matter what story you read, even if it's, Life of Pi or Hatchet, there's always a man versus self conflict. And guess what? If you didn't have a man versus self conflict, you don't have a story, because these characters are round and dynamic. The protagonist, the central figure, is round and dynamic. What that means is this character is complex. And this character undergoes psychological change. And so if you don't have someone that undergoes psychological change, then you don't have a story. You don't have a protagonist. So think of Batman again. Like, he's always undergoing some sort of psychological change. Should I be Batman anymore? It always hurts people that I love. And does Gotham really need me? And he's just very dramatic. So I'd say, man versus self is an important conflict. But also man versus man, right? Batman versus Joker. Man versus supernatural. I mean, we definitely saw that happen in the story of Strega Nona, right? This magic pasta pot being a supernatural element that a regular person cannot control. Only a healer, as experienced as Strega Nona, can face that sort of supernatural element. We've got man versus fate. I almost feel like this book did have a man versus fate element, because you knew that Big Anthony was going to do what he was told not to do. There's also stories that have a mechanical antagonist. That would be like The Matrix, I, Robot, maybe Independence Day. I don't know if you've seen that one. Another type of conflict is man versus nature. I don't think I really saw that here, but I have seen that in stories like Noah's Ark, right? God sends a flood. The Epic of Gilgamesh. I think there's a flood there too. So, yeah, we know these conflicts. We're very familiar with them. Number 8, the main conflict in the story, and you guys are probably taking notes. Like, I've probably given you a blank sheet of paper. This piece of paper here is a holy sheet. As one of my colleagues used to say, holy sheet, this is a holy sheet. Do not lose this sheet, because this is all stuff that's on the final. So you will not turn this sheet in. But you will turn many sheets in like this that are completed based on the stories that we read. But the main conflict is that Big Anthony did not follow directions, and now the whole town is in peril. Okay, narrative point of view. Well, oh gosh, I didn't even think about that with this story. I believe that this is a third person story. That means it's the first person is I, don't think about second person. Usually second person is instructions, like for a recipe, or I don't know, how to build something like IKEA furniture. So forget about second person. First person is going to be, autobiography or just a story where the character is called I. Third person, I'd say this book is third person, and I think that the narrator is omniscient because the narrator seems to know everything. But in more sophisticated stories like we will read, a lot of times you'll have a third person limited narrator. Now, why have a limited narrator? Because when the narrator only reveals some of the thoughts of some of the characters, that is way more suspenseful. So expect to see that in ninth grade a lot, that third person limited narrator. Number 10, what is the author's purpose? Guys, you got to memorize this for the final. There are 4 purposes for writing. To inform, okay? So if I'm going to inform you about an issue the United States is facing, I might go on some different websites and find out, currently the United States is looking for a vaccine for the coronavirus. Harvard is looking, a bunch of other prestigious colleges are looking for a virus cure. And, this is what they have to do to find a cure. And they have to go through drug trials and make sure that it is safe. Okay, so I might have to go to different websites. I would not go to Wikipedia, though, to research that because I don't trust it all the way. I don't do that. Now, if I was going to persuade you that it was important to vaccinate yourself against the coronavirus, I would, do some research, but I also might give a speech that would convince you to get vaccinated against the virus. And I might give that speech to South Madison students that come into contact with each other. I also might try to persuade all of Pendleton to take the vaccine. Okay, so that's to persuade. Now, who also has persuaded us in the past? I might try to persuade you as a teacher to read the book Strega Nona. It's a cute book, okay? If you have a little sibling or something. I might try to persuade you to do all of your homework in ninth grade. Especially research papers. They're important, right? So somebody like Martin Luther King would try to persuade you to believe, and this is true, that people are, the content of their character can be determined by their behaviors, right? Their actions. So Martin Luther King might try to persuade you. All right. He might also try to inspire you, you guys, and teach a lesson to you. So this story is definitely, I'd say it definitely inspired me. Like, someone tells me to leave something alone, I'm not going to touch it. And this is probably written for children. And so I also find this book very entertaining. It was suspenseful. It taught me a lesson. So this book is actually a didactic book. So I would read this to my little child if I didn't want her to touch the stove. If I wanted her to learn that sometimes old people, they know what they're talking about when they tell you, don't do this, don't do drugs. Okay. So also it's very entertaining. How do I know a story is entertaining? There's going to be suspense. There's going to be humor. And we could talk about that as we analyze some more stories. And we'll talk about the voice and tone. That's a really hard one to answer with nothing to talk about. I guess this tone against Big Anthony, the tone surrounding Strega Nona is that everybody talked about her in whispers. They went to see her if they had troubles. They actually, even the priests and the sisters went to visit her from their convent when they had troubles because they all agreed that Strega Nona had the magic touch. Like if you had a headache, she was able to procure herbs and spices that could help you with that. Okay. So there's no tone of caution, surrounding Strega Nona. Everyone loves her in the town, and she is like the bona fide medicine woman of the town. Okay. The preacher doesn't shame her for her using her magic. Okay. But the tone surrounding Big Anthony suggests that, He tells tall tales sometimes. He doesn't really listen to directions. What else? It says, and Big Anthony, who didn't pay attention. So the author's tone surrounding Big Anthony is, he seems kind of disappointed in Big Anthony. It seems like Big Anthony has some room to grow. So, okay. Sorry, I'm harping on this story. I just wanted to use a story that I could easily explain, and it's pretty cute. And just wanted to show you, you could apply this technique to any story. So, this one, number 12, round means complex. Make sure you write that down in your notes. Flat means the character's not complex. Okay, so I have this written here. Round, complex. Flat means it's not complex. So like the preacher and the nuns, they're not very complex, right? But characters like Big Anthony in Strega Nona, they're round. So priest, flat, Strega Nona, round. Static and dynamic. Here's the difference, okay? If you're a static character, you don't change. So I would say that in this story, Big Anthony is round and dynamic. He definitely undergoes a psychological change, right? He learned a lesson. And then we could sit here and argue about Strega Nona. Is she complex yet she didn't really undergo a psychological change? Or did she undergo a psychological change because she had to punish Big Anthony because she had to rescue the town? That's kind of fun to use tech support to prove your point. So again, the difference there, static means the character doesn't undergo a psychological change. Dynamic means they do. Now, if a character just dies, that's not a psychological change. That's just a physical change. So now there's going to be a question on the final. True or false, a protagonist is rounded dynamic? True, because the main character is going to undergo psychological change. Yes, sorry, I keep tapping this book. I will set it down. Okay, 13. What's a theme in the story? Okay, number 1, a theme cannot just be a word like repentance. Okay, that's not a theme. It's also not going to be a cliche. It's not going to be obvious. Okay, so if I was going to say a theme about this story, I might say that sometimes people have to make a big mess of things before they can learn a lesson. Like a person sometimes has to learn a lesson by hitting a brick wall before they actually understand that lesson. Now, some of us are wise and we don't need to, create a terrible pasta-demic in the town in order to learn a lesson. But some people do. So that could be one lesson. Another lesson would be to give people a little bit of grace. Big Anthony, he messed up. That doesn't mean that people should, string him up, that he should only get one chance. So that could be another theme. And there are so many themes we could come up for this story, but they need to be a sentence long, and we don't want to use the word you, which is really hard to do. So you just have to write it down. And we will practice this. We will practice. Okay. So 14, situation irony. When this is a reversal of fortune, or when something happens that's other than expected. Okay. So can I think of something? A reversal of fortune in this story. Well, I did not expect the townspeople in this story to turn on Big Anthony so quickly. I mean, they were eating all the pasta. He invited them all to Strega Nona's house, and they were, obsessed with the pasta. They weren't complaining when they were all eating, but immediately afterwards, they were like, string them up. You would not expect that to happen. Situational irony can be applied in lots of celebrities' lives, right? If you guys know about Michael Jackson's life, Michael Jackson was born in Gary, Indiana. It is sort of a dangerous city. But then he rose to stardom, right? He was a superstar. He was in Jackson 5. Then he became the king of pop. He even married Elvis's daughter. I don't know if you guys knew that. You probably did. But then, okay, reversal of fortune. Then when he was at the top, there were some allegations. I don't believe them because I love Michael Jackson. I think he was an innocent man that sort of like people took advantage of because he loved children. But, whatever you think about Michael Jackson is whatever you think about him. But, he kind of faced a decline in the 90s. People were saying bad things about him. But then, he moved away and he moved back to America. And then he was going to have a concert called This Is It. So he sort of rose to fame again. But then that was it. Like, he died. It's just too soon to even talk about it. But that was it. Literally, guys, he died. So if you want to talk about a reversal of fortune, you talk about Michael Jackson, because that was other than expected for him to have a concert called This Is It and then die, right? And to have so many reversals in his life of fortune. So, all right, verbal irony. This could be sarcasm. This could be a pun. So in the story, I said Big Anthony shouldn't have been such an imposter and tried to impersonate Strega Nona, okay? That is, an example of a pun. But I have a couple of puns for you right here, actually. Puns are a play on words, but here I have one of my daughter's bibs. I was going to bring this to school. Okay, it says, I like to wine and dine. Do you guys see the pun? Yes. Okay, wine is W-I-N-E, but since this is for a baby, there's a little pun on there. Here's one more pun for you. It says donut worry. How cute is that, right? So these are puns, and they're super cheesy. We're always into them. Okay, sarcasm. Sarcasm, it's like saying one thing but meaning another, right? So if I said, oh, it's great weather today, I love 2020, right? You can see that I'm being sarcastic. Actually, I do love 2020 because my daughter was born. But everything else so far has not been happy. Okay, so hyperbole. It's an exaggeration. And my friends always make fun of me for this, but I say it's fine. But I might say, oh my gosh, back home there's a place called Nero's Gyros, and they have the best Greek food in the world. And my friends always laugh at me. Obviously, I could not know what the best Greek food in the world is, but I might use hyperbole to show an exaggeration. Okay. 16, dramatic irony. This is when the audience knows something that the characters don't know. So in this story, we knew that Big Anthony was committing a major sin by, using Strega Nona's magic, unbeknownst to her, right? So Strega Nona doesn't know that Big Anthony has done this. But we know, and we know that trouble is brewing. Literally, it's brewing in the pasta pot. So dramatic irony. Here's another example. My dad and my husband love to watch this show, Criminal Minds. Well, there's always this complete psychopath, right? He's like hiding in the bushes. And, the police, they don't know who it is. But us in the audience, we know who it is. It's that crazy guy with the barn, He's not okay. I hope the police get there on time. So dramatic irony is so suspenseful. And one other example, this is really obvious, but the movie Titanic. You knew the Titanic was going to sink, right? But Jack and Rose didn't know. And so dramatic irony here is very suspenseful, but you're still going to go see that movie Titanic, even though you know it sank. Okay, so it's very suspenseful. Allusions. These are references to things that people would know in culture. So do we know about convents? Yes, we do. We know about convents. So that's a reference that we might know about. And in this story, there's an archetype of the healer, right? There's an archetype of kind of like this character also that an archetype is a symbol that's seen across culture or across time, or it could also be a character who's seen across culture and across time. And haven't we all seen the archetype of the healer? Haven't we all seen the archetype of the townspeople, right? And haven't we all seen the archetype of this goofy teenage boy, Big Anthony, who bumbles through life and makes lots of mistakes, right? So that would be an example of an archetype. But so any literary devices is asking for, this could be personification. It could be illusion, right? It could be, sorry, I'm just trying to think of them right now and at home, and all my bulletin boards are at school. But maybe I want to talk about, maybe I could talk about, why am I just drawing a blank right now? This is embarrassing. I am the English teacher. I should not be drawing a blank on literary devices. Oh, apostrophe. That's when a character just addresses, the unknown or like a godlike figure, right? So if I see any of these, I might write them down. And then I would think about the effect of them. So what's the effect of the mentioning the priests and the nuns in the story? Well, I might say that mentioning them and mentioning that they looked up to Strega Nona and that there was no judgment on Strega Nona's powers. Like, they didn't say she used black magic. They actually went to her for their headaches and everything. This suggests that Strega Nona is actually the most powerful person in town. So that's cool that this little allusion could lead us to that sort of understanding of Strega Nona's hierarchy in the town. Okay, finally, last three. You're like ready to be done with this video. Me too. I'm hungry. I'm about to go in the kitchen and get myself some chocolate Cheerios. This sounds really good. Okay, here we go. 19, dialect. Okay, yes, there's Italian dialect in this story. Strega Nona meant magic witch. And there's all kinds of fun Italian words in this book. So what effect does that have? Well, seeing as the story is so old and the way that it's told, I would think that this is almost like a fable, like a parable, like a story that we're supposed to follow. And even though it happened a long time ago in a place far away, this lesson is being told is timeless. And it also brings us into this really unique place that we've never been, and the language is really beautiful. Maybe there are powers that we don't know about in this ancient village. So using this Italian dialect is interesting because it sort of gives the story magical powers, right? And also it reveals itself to be an important lesson. So I don't want to compare it to the Bible, but I just want to say that the Bible is also a text that is meant to teach a lesson, right? Or like teach manners and stuff. So this is definitely teaching manners. Okay. So dialogue, that, like, if you're ever asking for that, I might ask you for the most important moment in the story. So it might be when she saves Big Anthony's life. Okay. So she says, everyone in the town says, "Oh, grazie. Thank you, Strega Nona." Okay. So having that dialect makes this story seem more authentic. This actually happened in Italy. But the dialogue here suggests they are so happy. They cried. The people cried. And then they turned on poor Big Anthony. "String him up," the men in the town shouted. Okay. So that dialogue shows that they are not having it. They are very upset with Big Anthony. String him up. And the men in town are ready to commit physical violence against him. So I'd say that conversation shows the intensity. Word choice. Okay. Last one. Word choice. Okay, this is going to be tricky because I didn't really think about this for this story. Let's see. So I would pick a word that might suggest, like, that might show a power over another word. Okay, so let me think about this. Okay, so they said pasta. This is not a very good example, you guys, but they said pasta, right? Pasta is different from spaghetti. It's different from fettuccine, right? It's different from penne, right? So I don't know. Maybe the word pasta sounds like it can't be contained. Like it can get really large. I don't know if you've ever cooked like rice or pasta, but just a little bit, it's a lot of servings. Okay, so maybe Big Anthony used a lot of pasta with the pasta pot. Maybe another word. The mayor uses the word. He says, "Get mattresses, tables, doors, anything to make a barricade." Okay, he uses the word barricade. He does not use the word obstruction. Barricade suggests they're in a really bad spot, like they're in danger, and they have to make a barricade. Like we would make a barricade if there was, God forbid, like a school crisis. We're supposed to pile all the desks in front of, and barricade ourselves in. So this word under effect, I'd write barricade versus obstruction, right? And for the effect of this, I would say that they're in deep trouble. Like they need to protect themselves against this pasta monster. Okay, so thank you for taking notes on this, and you're going to read a story and watch a video, and you're going to fill out both sides of an LT sheet using your new skills. This is going to be fun. I think 19, 20, and 21 are the hardest ones, and I'll be here to help you with those always, okay? All right, I hope you guys have a good day.